Apparently there's a video that's supposed to be played. No, but I don't have the controls. I'm not the one. I ain't the one. Just go. Oh. Oh. Maybe. Oh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, clap for it. All those people that didn't come in from the bar don't know what the fuck they missed. Joke's on them. I don't know. Maybe actually they saw it. I'm not sure. Welcome to Seckc, everybody. How are you this evening? You're about to get a lot more hype than that, I hope. Come on. This is the first December meeting, and I don't know how the fuck long. Have we ever had one, actually? Ever? No, we've never done a December meeting. This is history being made. Wow. Yeah, well, man, y'all need to care more. Anyway, why should you care? Because this is the world's biggest and bestest ever monthly meetup. Now we really do meet pretty much every single week. Next thing you know, we're going to do a fucking August meetup. Wouldn't that be something? I think that might fall into DEF CON time. DEF CON 40? Oh, priority. Yeah, of course it's the priority, but come on. And it's at lovely Knuckleheads. Oh, man, this place is fucking awesome. Here's a little tidbit, by the way. I'm maybe bleeding into the slides later, but you should probably volunteer. I don't know if any of you have given talks before or anything like that. I've given a couple, but we have never had an actual fucking green room and shit. It's like real, it's for real stars and stuff back there. It's crazy. They got snacks, everything. It's fucking lit. Anyway, as you've already probably figured out, our meetings are rated R. We don't have filters, or if we do, this is where we get to shed them. So, yeah. Doesn't mean we're savages, though, of course. Doesn't mean we're savages. Any yellow badge people? Alina, I see you there. Any other yellow badge people? You can look for the yellow badges, which are kind of sometimes hard to see, admittedly, in the places that we like to hang out. But you probably know Dork Phoenix. You probably know Heaven Sent, Lena and Bill, if you don't know their handles. We've got a couple others. I think Jiggle Billy might be a yellow. Anyway. Just look for, if you've seen them on stage or with a headset around or something like that, even if they don't have a yellow badge, they probably know where to find a yellow badge. So just look for one of us. We'll help you out. There's no harassment tolerated. Everyone is equal here. If you see something, say something, blah, 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 blah. But I mean that in an et cetera way, not in a demeaning way. I mean that. All right, destroy no data, maintain no persistence, above all, do no harm. If you don't know what your tools are doing, please don't use them here. We don't want a repeat situation of that one night. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say that one night, you can buy me a beverage at the bar, and I'll tell you a really fun story. Kind of fun. It's fun in retrospect. It really wasn't fun that night, let me tell you that. Let's see. State and federal law enforcement officers are encouraged to and do attend Seckc meetings. Sometimes there's even fucking snitches. They ain't even working for nobody. They're just snitches. Seckc does not track membership. I don't know you. You don't know me. Unless we're streaming, in which case people might know me, but I've got my fist up to my mouth, so hopefully all the AI is trying to figure out, because it's not my foot up there, so they wouldn't recognize me. Let's see. Everyone belongs at Seckc. Was kind of getting to that earlier. Hopefully everyone heard it the first time. If you didn't, you should hear it this time. Everyone belongs at Seckc. How do you become a member of Seckc? Well, if you're here, you've already done it. Congratulations. If you decide to affiliate yourself with us, awesome. We'd love to have you. If you're watching this on a stream, I'm assuming we're doing the streaming thing anyway. You should just, all right, we are, excellent. Hop in the Discord. Don't know what the link to the Discord is? Well, you're going to get it in a little while, so just hold your horses there. Also, assume that everyone you're talking to is technical, okay? Don't assume because of any preconceived notion that the other person that you're talking to doesn't know what you're talking about. Likewise, on the other end of that coin, we don't talk about this one very much, if you don't understand something that somebody's saying, you should be like, yo, hold up. I didn't understand that really dope thing you just said. Could you explain that a little bit more to me? This is a place for learning. I have been coming to this shit for, 12 years now or something like that, and definitely attribute a lot of my professional success to Seckc, to the people that I've met here, to the information that has been exchanged between me and others. So thank you, Seckc, for everything. You don't have to clap at that. It's fine. I'm not now. So we've got a shut the fuck up wall. Now it's like a real shut the fuck up wall. Right? We need to like reword this slide a little bit maybe. But we've got a whole ass shut the fuck up room. It's back there. A lot of people like to hang out in the beginning and miss the 101. You miss the Seckc stand-up. Joke's on you because this shit's great. You guys look like you're having a lot of fun out there though. But for reals though, whenever we've got an actual speaker up here, not just someone fucking yammering for a while, please don't carry on side conversations or whatever while you're in here. Of course, if you want to clarify something that the speaker just said, little whispers, perfectly fine or whatever. But for reals, we've got this awesome space. If you want to have a full-fledged conversation, take it out there. Let people listen to the talks. Let's see. Meet new people while you're here. Why are we spelling that M-E-E-T? We spell that meat around these places. M-E-A-T. Challenge ideas, not people, though. So anytime you have a disagreement, make sure it's a disagreement with the idea and not just some arbitrary aspect about a person, right? Don't attack people, attack ideas. I like attack. That sounds aggressive. We got Google Forms somewhere. I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with that very well. But apparently we have a Google form where we try and track how many people are coming out. We don't really do the pizza thing anymore, so I don't know. What are we using that for? Somebody can tell me about that later. Anyway, if you see a Google form, fill it out. What could happen, right? Also, we don't track attendance. Get social, everybody. I hope someone's questioning what we are doing with the Google Forms now. If you are not on the Discord, you really ought to be on the Discord. If for no other reason, then it's a great place to ask questions. It's a great place to learn things. It's a great place to shitpost. We're an awesome community. We've got people all over the world in our Discord. It is active at pretty much all hours of the day. Highly encourage you to join it. We've also got other social media things, and I don't fuck with that shit, so I don't know nothing about it, but you can look up those handles if you're on those platforms, and yeah, more power to you. I take that back. I'm on Twitter once a year for DEF CON, because what can I say? Old habits die hard. What else we got? We got a swag table. I know it's a... Do we have swag? Do we actually have swag? Oh, it's online. Yeah, like the slide says. Like I'm presenting. All right, we'll have some in person in the new year. That's a guarantee. Dork Phoenix said so. I'll do it. Fuck it. I'll hawk stuff. That sounds good. I've always wondered what it would be like to be a street vendor. Do you want to find yourself up here screaming into a microphone, hoping that people find you funny? Do you want to help out with other random Seckc things to do? Because trust me, there are a lot of things to do. We could very much use your help. You can go to that link, or you can just say some shit in the Discord somewhere, and someone will probably see it and point you to someone who can tell you maybe what you can do next time. We would love to have you. It is a great place to get involved. Again, volunteering is a great thing to do to increase that network. Right? For quick show of hands, how many people are trying to get jobs in this field, huh? Oh, we're all just a bunch of employed motherfuckers? All right, well, I saw some hands up. But anyway, if you are trying to make your break or whatever, meeting people is a great thing to do, all right? I really hate to say that, that whole, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's mostly bullshit, but unfortunately, it's kind of sort of true as well. It can help you with the whole right place, right time thing, all right? Anyway, this is a great group to start volunteering with. It'll give you all sorts of confidence boosts. And yeah, do you think we're doing something wrong? Do you want to see it done some other way? congratulations, you just fucking signed up to do it. But seriously, I mean, if there's something that you think we should be doing differently and you, for whatever reason, don't want to be empowered to do it yourself, you can let us know in the Discord, and maybe we have a, that's not a hyperlink, is it? We're animals. I've been trained to think that anything underlined is a hyperlink. I don't know, maybe these slides are available online and available publicly, I'm not sure. You should just ask in the Discord if there's something, you know, create a burner account or whatever. I think you gotta verify your phone number for our Discord now, but tell ya, spammers. All right, what are some other things that are going on later this month and into the new year? We've got, is it what, Women in Technology? Is that WIT? Yes? Okay, sweet. Hell yeah. KCAI Club Social. AWS is doing a holiday party. That's usually a pretty good time. Seckc. What was that? I'm getting there. I said Seckc. Now HoboCon. I'm going to come back to that real quick because I got some stuff to say about it. Seckc DSM Movies is happening in January. Maybe I'll make that. I don't know. I'm hoping so. Seckc KC in January, of course, and then another WIS KC meeting in January as well. So, who here knows about HoboCon? That's a good amount of people. For those of you that didn't woo, let me tell you what. Let me woo you over right now. See what I did there? It is your very first security conference on a train. Now, big asterisk next to that, because Rickson is really nervous that he started to convince people that there's an actual security conference happening on a train, and it's not. It's really just a bunch of hackers getting together, day drinking and evening drinking, and hacking on shit, but on a train. So basically, it's a security conference on a train. You don't have to know anything to join us. If you are new and getting started and you just want to soak up ideas and see what the process is like, sweet, come on out. If you've got a project idea and you want to work on it on a train, definitely hook it up. This is going to be great. It's like a 5.5-hour trip down and then a 5.5-hour trip back the next day. We're going to stay, I think, at a Hilton property. So if you're a Hilton person, use them points. Make it not even cost no money. But it's going to be a great time. Highly encourage you to do it. I'm sure everyone is going to leave our train within 30 minutes of departure. All right. So what do we got going on tonight? Make Excuses time was like an hour and something ago. You're listening to me ramble now. Bill might have something to say after this as well, it sounds like. They've allotted 6:30 for my ramblings. Fuck yeah. 6:30, open source news briefing with Netcode. At 6:45, we've got a lovely repeat guest here at Seckc KC, Dr. Wesley McGrew. You're going to learn how to reverse engineer software with him. And then at 7:45, let's see, we're going to be doing evidence in motion. I'm not going to read that because you all can read. And if not, come talk to me. I'll help with that. In the whole time we got going on, we got Mr. Johnny 5 Alive doing the beats for us. What do we got here? Hold on. This one did have some presentation notes, I seem to remember. Something about the one thing that I did see in there, and I don't know how it's relevant with this slide, but it's tip the bartenders because we love bartenders. Please remember to tip your waiters and waitresses. And I don't know, there were some other announcements in there, but this isn't in presenter mode, so I can't really tell you. And I'm pretty sure that's your Seckc KC 101. So if it's your first time, welcome to Seckc. Actually, quick show of hands. Is it anyone's first time? Oh, shit, yeah. We got a lot of first timers. All right. Well, let me tell you what, friends, it is usually like this, so if you like what you got so far, stick around. If not, get the fuck out of here. Johnny 5 Alive, please drop some beats for us.
all hear me all right? All right, thanks. Hey, somebody in the back, tell everybody in the back to come in. I've got some shit to say. It's Festivus time. I've got some problems with you folks. Tell everybody get in here. I've got some stuff to say. Hey, everybody, Bill wants you to come inside.
Please, everybody, join us in the main hall.
Just for a little bit, then you can go back to drinking or whatever you're doing out there. I don't care. All right, well, first of all, I want to hear from you guys. How do you guys like the Knuckleheads Seckc? Do we love it here? I love it too. I love it too. And what I want to do real quick is I want to let you guys know that we need volunteers and we need speakers for next year. The Seckc does not run by itself. And we have, what I'd like to do is I'd really like to thank some of the people that helped put on Seckc. So before we get started, if I could just have the directors come out. Just the directors, if you could come out. Just real quick. There comes. Does anybody seen Maddie? Maddie, you don't follow directions. Get in here. Oh, Maddie. Hey, I'm going to take you owe me 5 more minutes now. Yeah. Get on in here, you folks. Well, we are missing one director. Unfortunately, I do need to tell you some bad news. We lost Daryl tonight. Oh, he's not dead. But I just want, before we get going, and hey, don't go away. I've got more shit to talk about. All right, thanks. But before we go real quick, I just want you guys, I'm going to give the mic to the directors. I just want you guys real quick to introduce yourselves and introduce your role at Seckc real quick.
Probably. Oh, hi, I'm Maddie or Zool. I am technically the president of Seckc. I'm also the director of operations and event space, previously content coordination, previously other things. I do many things at Seckc. If you want to give a talk, that's not my fucking problem anymore, and I'm so excited about that. Whose problem is that?
It's mine. So I am Lena, aka Dork Phoenix. I am director of content coordination and speaker ops. So if you have a talk you want to give, we have a form you can fill out. If you'd rather approach me in person, feel free to do that. Essentially what I need is a synopsis of your talk, what it's about, and when you'd like to give it. We do have a schedule, so I might not be able to put you on immediately, but we definitely want local folks to talk. So approach me anytime or fill out the form.
I'm Patrick Jigglebilly. I'm on the board of directors with Bill. I kind of just fill in the gaps, things that need to get done, ideas, general shit talking. Cool visuals. Yep, lots of bartending. But yeah, just kind of fill in wherever I need to fill in.
All right, and I'm Chris C. Schultz, director of online content and coordination. Yeah, I can't remember the whole title. Website, social media, emails, any of that. So if you want to help out with that, hit me up.
So as you can tell, I didn't even tell them that we're going to be doing this. Now, the reason why I want everybody in here, and if you're still out there, please come inside real quick. I want anybody that's ever given a talk at Seckc to stand up. Can we get those house lights on real quick? Look at how many people of our local audience have talked. I would like to invite, if you have given a talk, I'd like to invite you to come up on stage real quick. Come around this way and then come up the ramp. Just real quick. It won't take long. If you've given a talk at Seckc, I want you to come up on stage. That means you people out there. They can't hear me. It's okay. I know. I'm a loudmouth. But so these are the directors, and we meet multiple times a month to make sure that Seckc happens, right? Real quick. All right, for those of you who have spoken at Seckc, I want you guys to sign the skateboard. So what we're doing is we're trying to capture the signatures of everybody that's ever spoken at Seckc. If you could give me your fingerprints and social security numbers too, be great. Listen, as we move into next year, I'm wanting to change a little. Oh, I didn't even introduce myself. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Bill. I'm one of the co-founders of Seckc. And we're going to be trying to change some things for next year, and that's why I want everybody's attention. So when we moved to Knuckleheads, one of the things that was really important to me was I wanted to make sure that we could bring world-class speakers and make them available to you. So my directors and we all reached out in our networks, and I think we brought in some banging speakers this year. We've got another amazing set tonight. But I want the community to grow. Like it's really, really important to me that you're giving a talk as well. Look at all these people that have already spoken, and that's not even a fraction of people that have spoken in Seckc. Well, it is. Thank you. This is our comedian over here. He is correct. It is a fraction. But there are two other people that are not on this stage that I want to make sure that we all give a round of applause to. These two guys, they sit in the background, they sit behind the scenes, and they just make sure that shit happens. First, I want Jim McKibben to come up. Where's Jim? Oh, there he is. Jim, I have an award for you. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I think I may have spelled your name wrong, too.
No, you got it. You nailed it.
So Jim, I don't know if you guys know Jim. He sits in the very back. He sits in the DJ booth, and he makes sure that when you walk in, that the beats are dropping, and it sounds good in here, and it sounds so amazing. And listen, man, I really appreciate everything you do here. And you've been so consistent, and you've been so amazing, and I just love your style. And I just want everybody to give him a big round of applause. We also have Isaiah. Isaiah, where are you at? There you are. So Isaiah runs the news for us. And I am overriding his time right now, so he gets an award for that. There you are. So I got to tell you, I don't know if you guys were here for the time when I tried to do the news. It was a fucking train wreck. And everybody was like, get Isaiah back on the news. I got to tell you, you have such quick wit. I love your news segment. It's something that I sit right up front and I listen. There are times when you're doing news where I am literally Googling so fast to try and find that news story, because that really made a big difference to me in my job, right? And I want to tell you from my bottom of my heart, I appreciate what you do here. Thank you so much. Let's hear it for Isaiah. Now, we've missed one. So there's another person who literally runs the show here. Nothing would happen without this person. This person is usually the first one to arrive. He's usually the last one to leave. There'll be times when I'll be like, Joel, I need a USB-A to a USB-C to an HDMI, and that's what he does. He's like, Bill, I've got that in my car. I'll be right back. I think one time I asked you for Kevlar, and you got it. I don't know how. I don't know how that happened, but let me tell you something, Joel has been a integral part of Seckc since the onset. He was an integral part of every group I've ever been a part of. He was an integral part of the hacker space, for those of you guys who remember that. But without Joel, Seckc would not happen. And I mean that. And Joel, from my bottom of my heart, man, like a lifetime friendship with you, my friend. I thank you so much for everything you've ever done for us. Thank you. I appreciate everything. So Maddie only allotted me 15 minutes or something. But speakers, Seckc would not be anything without you. So we try really hard to make sure that we have a good location for you, to make sure that we have a good stage for you, to make sure that we have a good audience for you. But it's your talks. It's your research. It's the time that you put in that brings our people out. And so, again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for everything you guys have ever done. I know all you guys, and I love you all so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's hear it for the speakers. All right, that's all the Bill's ramblings. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Hope everybody has a great night. We'll move on to the news.
Is this still on? Can I just embarrass Joel a little bit more real quick? At my brother and sister-in-law's wedding, last minute, I was like, people are going to trip over this photo booth cord. And Joel shows up with an extension cord and a rug from Walmart. And he's like, here, have this. I was like, amazing, phenomenal. Yeah, support in every possible way. Thank you so much, Joel. Amazing.
Let's see if this works. I'll be honest, I haven't tested this on the new Ubuntu, so we'll see how this works. It is indeed what she said. Oh, let's go. Hell yeah. All right, so let's get some news. First off, vulnerabilities. Notepad++, I just read about that one this morning, in a week ago. But anyway, Notepad++ Updater had a problem where you could use it to download things that are not Notepad++. Mild concern. Unify RCE, no auth required. Pretty handy if you want control over Unify, very handy. Anyway, React to Shell, I assume most of you have heard about this. Minor itty-bitty 10 out of 10 issue in React. I think it's like 77 million hosts, I think, were suspected to be vulnerable. It might be closer to 30 million, because apparently reporting was kind of shit. Massive surprise to everybody. Who could have seen that sensationalized new vuln? Crazy. Anyway, you should fucking update. It's 19.0 through 19.2, I think, for React Server or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a React person. Microsoft finally fixed that funny LNK bug that people have been abusing for like however many decades now. Finally fixed that, woohoo. On to some breaches. U.S. nuclear weapons company was popped because SharePoint. We love SharePoint. Let's go. KCPD apparently has a secret misconduct list that somebody leaked, so that was kind of funny. F5 lost some source code and apparently a bunch of undisclosed flaws in Big IP. So I hope none of you guys use that or need that. The Congressional Budget Office got popped in, I think, early November or late October, and apparently they were actively under exploitation for quite a while. You just couldn't trust emails from them, apparently. I don't know. The Kansas Attorney General site was used to host a bunch of stuff it really shouldn't have been. Patch your shit, guys. Logitech lost 1.8 terabytes of peripheral and, I don't know, whatever else stuff. I don't think it was actually user data, but they lost a bunch of stuff. Apparently no sensitive information, and they blame it a 0 day, but they didn't say what. On to some other really fun shit. 700 Credit. Most of you have probably never heard of this company. They are the largest, or one of the largest, auto industry credit reporting and identity verification services. They're used by 18,000 dealerships, and this breach affected 5.6 million customers. So I hope none of you have ever bought a car in your life. Otherwise, you got caught. I don't know how you say this, but this is a Korean company that got popped and affected 33.7 million customers. And they are actually getting in a lot of shit. After SK, Korean Telecom, got popped last year or early this year, I forget, and got in a lot of shit, they're also getting in a lot of shit for this one. And the Korean government is not a fan. Thank you. Petco got popped and for some reason has customer social security numbers. I don't know why, but they sure do, and they sure don't anymore. Well, now they do, but everyone else does too. On to some funny stuff. A bunch of data centers are currently on hold because they don't have enough turbines for the generators because the power grid in the United States is dog shit because we don't like nuclear. I love nuclear. Who is with me? Let's go. Celebrite details were leaked again because someone managed to get into one of their team sales calls, like one of their team, Microsoft Teams. Fucking hate that name. Microsoft Teams sales calls. Anyway, they got a bunch of details on what is and isn't currently unlockable. Plug for Graphene OS. You should use Graphene OS if you have a Pixel. It's fucking amazing. Also, they can't pop any. Celebrite can't get anything later than 2022, I think, if you have Graphene. You might have heard about the Louvre getting popped. So their security cameras, like their security servers, password was Louvre. So, and they knew about that in like 2014. They just didn't change it. When Elon Musk in his infinite wisdom decided we got to switch it to X, we got to be edgy, we gotta. They tried to decommission Twitter.com, and I think they've mostly succeeded. But part of that involved minor fuck-ups involving wiping security keys because they were tied to a different domain. That locked a lot of people out for a bit. Meta, it turns out, has been fully aware they're making a fuckload of money off bot accounts and scam basically like, they've been lying about ads and how well they're doing, and who could have seen that one coming? And people are getting mad about that. Somebody, I don't know who, found a funny little issue with, or a funny way of hijacking the way that the US sends out alerts, and was sending out a bunch of obscene ones. Shocker. There was this funny incident a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week, with some Australian guy on a plane plus a Wi-Fi pineapple where he set up a malicious AP and then was taking people's credentials, and then somebody reported that, and when they got off the flight, they just searched everyone's bag. He had a fucking pineapple in his bag, and he got arrested, and I think he's facing 7 years. Apparently he also had a whole lot of other shit he was not supposed to, because he was logging into people's social media accounts, grabbing their nudes, and keeping them. On to some skill issues. L3 Harris, quote-unquote, cyber boss, by far my favorite title, was selling secrets to Russia. No! Who could have seen that coming? ChatGPT was down for a while. I didn't really pay that much attention to it. I don't really know what the root cause was. I just thought it was really funny, and I really wanted to use that meme. AWS! Who here uses AWS? That didn't have any problems, right? They definitely didn't have a major outage that severely affected everyone. And then 8 Sleep also had their outage because of AWS. I hope you like a really hot bed that you can't fucking control because it's cloud connected. It's a fucking bed. It is a bed for sleeping in. Azure. Woohoo! What if we ran it back like Amazon, but nowhere near as bad because no one uses Azure? Oh, wait. Yeah. Cloudflare. Who loves Cloudflare? No one uses Cloudflare, right? It's all like 2/3 of the internet or something. So that was an incident that happened and took out the entire internet for what, like 12 hours, 8 hours, something like that. It was a problem. Anyway, then I bet you all love that. So they did it again. They just love you guys so much. They just ran it back. On to some ransomware. The DOJ is accusing some negotiators, like some ransomware negotiators, of assisting with ransomware attacks. Who could have possibly foreseen this? There's a financial incentive? No! On to some mildly interesting things. The Python Foundation withdrew a grant for $1.5 million that was accepted by the US government because the US government was like, oh, if you don't say we will never do anything with DEI related with this money, we won't give it to you. And they're like, fuck you, we're not taking it then. Let's go. Fed seized a bunch of bulletproof hosting servers, seized like 250 of them. I didn't really double check this, but if I recall correctly, they just made another one, because that's what they do. So I think they were down for a total of like a day or two. But great job, Feds, you fucking nailed it. Cloudflare also got into trouble for manga piracy. I believe it was a Japanese court was like, bro, this is you're facilitating this. What the fuck? On to what the fuck. ICE, Secret Service, and Navy have all had access to Flock's nationwide network. for a long fucking time now. Hope no one cares about privacy or anyone knowing where you're driving, because Flock fucking knows. Check out dflock.me. Great site. Please add to it. Google's trying to restrict sideloading on Android. I wouldn't even call it sideloading. I would call it installing an application, personally. But they don't want you to do that. And they were trying to make it so you couldn't, and then they backtracked after like 2 weeks, and now they're only kind of doing it. And what do you want to bet in the next year? They're going to be like, a little more restriction. They're just going to keep doing that until you fucking can't. Because they do it every fucking time and no one stops them. I hope nobody likes memory, whether that's for LLMs, computers, or anything fucking else, because it skyrocketed like, what, 300 to 500% in price? Micron just shut down the consumer division of Crucial, so there's one of the RAM players out. Your options are now SK Hynix and Samsung, but Crucial isn't fucking there because they're busy making VRAM because that's where the money is. Fuck you, Crucial. Flock again, like always. Turns out models need to be trained. They need data to be trained. So how are we going to train? Oh yeah, Philippine children. Works every time. Never failed. Sissa says you might get a little bricked up. Maybe. Apparently there's a couple, or some nation states that are using, or at least one nation state that's using a tool, or sorry, using malware called Brickstorm. And I just thought that was really funny. Missouri has age verification laws now. Fuck off. So anyway, Pornhub's blocked. Now I don't smoke weed. Is there any reason I shouldn't move to Kansas? Higher taxes in Kansas or Missouri? So don't move to Kansas is what I'm hearing. All right, great, I'll stay here. Ending on a high note, here's some nice stuff. The International Criminal Court is switching to OpenDesk because Microsoft revoked the International Criminal Court head's email access when he was sanctioned by the US for warrants against Netanyahu. Strange. Tor got a cool update that has a bunch of cool new shit. I haven't messed around with it that much, but I've heard it's pretty cool. Portugal is now allowing actual security research. I don't know, I haven't read the law. I don't know how good it is. But from what I understand, it's a lot better than it used to be. So that's pretty cool. The Pixel 10 now has AirDrop. For now, I think Apple is going to almost certainly push out a security update that means it won't work anymore. But for now, Pixel 10s can AirDrop to iPhones. So that's kind of fun. And the SEC dropped the rest of the claims against the SolarWinds CISO from, was that 2017? Was it 2017? It was a long time ago. Anyway, those were all dropped, so that's cool. If you're a CISO, I don't know. I'm not a CISO, so that doesn't affect me that much. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you all enjoyed. See you next month.
That is good. Welcome to Seckc, where we have 1,000 intros for 2 talks. Yeah? No? Okay. Thank you all for coming out. This is, I think, the first time in my memory that we've done anything kind of official in December. And it's super cool that we had both enough people that were willing to kind of come out and put in the work to give talks and to volunteer and everything like that, but also for everybody out there for cutting in time between all those, the social calendar and everything like that. So we're going to talk tonight a little bit, I think, as I look into this, a little bit about looking back into the past and a little bit at looking at the current state of things and into the future going into 2026. How many people were happy with how 2025 went? Yeah, fuck 2025. It can go away. So, as we move away from that, I mean, 2025 was incredibly strange. How many people here thought that they'd be seeing the things that they were seeing, even if you were wide-eyed about where technology and things were going? Probably not. As I sit here after dedicating a lot of work, kind of working at the bleeding edge of a lot of this kind of stuff and seeing the way that things are starting to kind of pop off, it's funny because I find myself going back and learning more about how to control agentic systems by going back and reading the original texts on computer programming, on C and stuff like that. And Wes, I think, is going to start us off by kind of going back and started talking about some basics and some fundamentals. And how many people here know Dr. Wes McGrew?
All right.
I love you, Wes! The good doctor has come to us all the way from, help us pronounce it properly so the folks that are going to be coming in for the World Cup know how to say where you're from.
Starkville, Mississippi.
Mississippi. Is that right? Not Mississippi, Mississippi. Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about geography. Mississippi is kind of similar to the state that we're in.
We're not good at geography in Mississippi.
Well, I mean, we're really good at it in Missouri. We just have our own. Right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm wondering is if you guys have the same kind of thing. So for everybody from out of town, if you come in, we have a town called Versailles.
Mm-hmm.
What is, in Mississippi, there was a president named James Monroe. Tell us what the name of that town in Mississippi is called, that's spelled the same way.
Monroe.
Monroe.
But also, y'all might have a Louisville anywhere else. It's Louisville.
Louisville.
Yeah, that's right.
Not Louisville.
Spelled the same way.
Okay. Oh, so Louisville is the one further north, and Louisville is Mississippi. It's fantastic. Pay attention, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You learn all kinds of things when you're here in the great state of Missouri, where we have fine universities, four-year universities in major conferences. Everybody, I want everybody to put their hands together for Dr. Wes McGrew, who came here all the way from Mississippi, talk to you here this close to Christmas.
I'll trade you. Thank you.
Have a good time, bro.
Appreciate it. That was probably one of the best introductions I've ever had. All right. So the purpose of this talk is a kick in the ass, basically. So I can't teach you much about reverse engineering in 45 minutes or however long I can sit up there and sit up here and talk before they drag me off. But what I can do is get you started, get you pointed in the right direction. How many of y'all out there are involved in any kind of reverse engineering right now? Very few. So how many of y'all are looking to get into it, right? A lot of you, right? And I think I'm going to talk about some of the reasons for some of y'all that didn't raise your hands. I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why you might want to after this talk. But the goal here has to be somewhat limited. So I have 45 minutes. In a semester-long class, I teach semester-long classes on this. I taught them at Mississippi State University for years. The software reverse engineering class there is 45 classroom hours. I looked it up. I didn't know how long do I even teach for a semester? It's a lot. A training course like you'd pay for with SANS or something like that is about 36 hours of training. I teach DEF CON workshops each year on a variety of topics in this field and similar fields. Those are a lot of fun if you could get into them. How many of y'all have tried to get into my workshops and haven't been able to? Yeah, a lot. Yeah. In a talk, I can choose one of two things. And so I give a lot of talks on my research, and those are presentations about things that I've done that are not tutorial. They're showing you what I've done, right? It's a prestige piece, right? So I can do that when they asked me to come speak. I was like, oh, I can do that, or I can convince you to start doing this stuff. And that's what I'm up to on this, and giving you sort of a starting point for it. So reverse engineering is a rare skill. It's hard to say how many reverse engineers there are in the world that are capable of, say, taking the latest piece of malware, picking it apart to its very basics, and tell you exactly from go to execution ended what all does this do, what all can it do, everything about it. There's probably only a few thousand people in the world that can do that, as far as I can tell. And so it's valuable. You're dealing with abstractions from the real environment being the computer that's sitting in front of you right here. Anything that you're doing on your computer, you're working at a level of abstraction. If you're writing code in C, your abstraction is that the compiler is responsible for converting that into assembly code, and it handles a lot of the memory management of local variables and things like that. You've got libraries to interact with the system, but you kind of live in your world there where you don't have to know how the assembly language works. You don't have to know how virtual memory works. You don't have to understand computer architecture like you do when you're writing assembly. So you're a layer removed. If you were writing code in Python or some other interpreted language, you're another layer of abstraction above that, or JavaScript even further up, and so on and so forth. You're running in an environment that is implemented in another language, implementing its own sort of, not a virtual machine in the sense of KVM or VMware, but a virtual machine that's implemented in software, right? The Python bytecode interpreter, the environment that C presents you. So you should always, and what I've tried to do through my career, you should always be looking to go one more level down, figure out how it works, right? By the time I'm dead, I'm going to be, cooking up sand to build computers, right? And so you have all these layers of abstraction, but now you have another interesting thing. Up until a few years ago, if I was reverse engineering code, I can sit there and imagine there being somebody on the other end of my computer or across the world, across all the networks and everything, that wrote this code. Somebody wrote this code, compiled it, wrapped it up in a binary, and started trying to scam a bunch of people with it, trying to infect a bunch of people with it, right? They have their motivations, and I keep that in mind whenever I'm reverse engineering their code, because I've written a bunch of code. I know how they're going to be writing code, and I feel like I'm learning things about the author. Now, that might not be the case. In recent years, AI may have generated that code based on instructions, right? And so, as you're reverse engineering something now, you're in a unique position where you might be reverse engineering something that nobody else has ever read, right? And so it's a versatile skill. We're going to look at some of the things that you can do with this. So the immediate and obvious thing is malware reverse engineering. Figure out what a piece of malware does. Incident handling. I get pulled in on really high-end incident handling investigations because if it's a piece of malware that didn't get caught by endpoint, if it's something there's not a white paper from any of the threat intel folks about, that doesn't mean we don't need to know what it does, right? We need to know what it does. We need to know not only what would it do if I ran this on a computer, but what's the full set of capabilities that this thing would have on any computer, right? And so not just watch it run and see what it does, but also that's one path of execution. What are all the paths of execution? What are the data structures that this thing uses? What is its artifacts on disk and memory, network? How are we going to write detections for it? With ransomware especially, the big deal is, did it encrypt in place or did it exfiltrate the data, right? More and more now you're seeing it pulling data out for extortion purposes and such. But this is like the main thing in RE, and it's one of the easiest parts to get into. Even if you're into any of this other stuff, right? I advise learning this in the context of malware because there's such a body of work out there of stuff that you can pick apart. There's so many papers out there describing it. I'm going to talk about all these resources. You may be doing tool development. We support red teams, like red teams that our clients have. We support them with new tools and methodologies and stuff like that. We learn those methodologies by reverse engineering attack code, right, that threat groups are using. Patching and modification of things, if you're cracking games and anything like we did in the 80s on our Commodores and such. Anytime you're troubleshooting things, right? So if your code's not behaving the way you think it ought to, maybe something weird happened in the compilation process where your assumptions are not valid anymore. And the same thing goes for vulnerability research, right? If you're finding bugs in code, the bugs that you're finding in code are almost every vulnerability out there is a result of a programmer having a misunderstanding of the environment that they're running in at a fundamental level. Think about a buffer overflow exploit. In its most basic level, you've got Emcee, you define a string of 100 bytes, and somebody gives you 200 bytes to stuff into it, right? The vulnerability there, if you're not checking those bounds, is that you assumed something in your environment is going to check those bounds for you, or you didn't think about it. You didn't realize the implications of what you were doing. And so if you look at any vulnerability, it's a misunderstanding between the developer and some of those layers of abstraction they're working under, and they may not understand those layers of abstraction. Somebody who doesn't understand how a function calls another function in C may not really have a good conceptual grasp on how to write code to avoid that, and certainly wouldn't be able to find it or fully understand what the problem is to avoid it. For digital forensics, if you're investigating a case, civil or criminal or what have you, and you're dealing with software that there's not something on the forensics wiki about for its file system structures and things like that, it may be up to you to figure that out, and that's going to be part of the process. And so there's a lot of different things. You can bring this into almost any area or any of the fun areas of security. And compliance folks, I don't know, maybe not. Any of the fun areas of security, you can bring this in and apply it and make yourself a lot more valuable because you're going to be the only one in the room that can do it. So when I talk about software reverse engineering in the context of what I'm presenting to you today as far as how to get started learning, I'm talking about native code compiled from source. That's C code or other languages compiled down into x86, 64-bit, 32-bit. You still see some malware that's 32-bit because it's going to run on anything at least. You see a lot of attackers still using really old tool chains. You see a lot of Visual Studio 6 code generating out there. It works still. It makes code that runs on a modern processor, so why not, right? ARM, anything where it's native code from C, C++, other compiled languages. You can do this, and then the same philosophy applies if you're doing it for compiled code or for any other language. Have you ever tried to, have you ever grabbed a whole source code repository for a project and they're not real fond of comments, right? And so it's left up to you to try to just sort of read through the code for a while and just see what are the major components of this? What's the flow of execution? What does this thing do? How does it do what it does, right? If you've ever cloned a repository and started going through it, that's your reverse engineering right there. Now imagine doing that with a C code repository and none of the functions are named. All the functions are named func 001, 002, 003. Right? So you don't know the names of the functions, so you don't know what they're supposed to be, what the purpose of them is. Let's now imagine that the variables are all like that too. The variables are all x1, x2, x3, x4, x5. Okay, great, fantastic. Now take away the types, right? You don't know what a type of a variable is until it's actually used in some way or another, right? Now take away everything, right? You just have a bundle of instructions, right? The tools that we use for this, there's going to be two distinct approaches that you're going to take to most software reverse engineering projects, and it all falls down under static analysis and dynamic analysis. How many of y'all have just sort of decided to just have a piece of malware and just detonate it on a machine and just see what happens, right? Yeah, that's fun, right? Do it in a VM, bucket, right? You double-clicked it, it ran, little command prompt popped up and disappeared. Maybe that happened when you downloaded a game from BitGirl or something, and it's just up and gone, and you're like, what the hell happened? Now, the problem is people, your family members and stuff probably come to you and they're like, oh, yeah, my computer's acting weird, all sorts of strange stuff's happening. They'll describe weird shit that's happening on their computers, and they're like, I think I got a virus. Most of the time, no, you don't, more than likely, because most malware doesn't do anything visually. Like, you can double-click it, it runs, and you're like, what happened? Huh. And look, if you thought it had a little bit, you're like, okay, restore that VM to snapshot, or we're just blowing away this machine now, because you can't trust it. That's a form of dynamic analysis. You just kind of detonate it on a machine and see what happens. You can run it on online sandbox. That's the next level of it, right? You just let app.any run it and give you a play-by-play of what happened with it. That's pretty good. That's not a bad way of doing it if you don't know what you're doing. So those are simple ways of it. But really, you get away from this the more you start learning about reverse engineering. You start doing more static analysis, because it was explained to me when I took a I need a battery. Hey, run and get my bag. Yeah, it's USB-C. Okay, I've got a battery in there. But anyways, is you've got when you're doing dynamic analysis, you're watching something run. You're seeing one round of execution against this thing, right? You're seeing one path through your code. And you know, if you've ever written code, you're doing branching paths through things. There may be huge chunks of it that never wind up executing, right? It's by the couch in the green room, Bill. But so when we're doing the static analysis, we're looking at a dead listing. It's as if you're looking at the code. If you were to look at the source code tree of a program, you have all the files, you have all the code in front of you, all the things that thing can do as part of that code. The same thing happens with with an assembly language program. Yep, that's it. That's the bag. And I'm going to get it set up with a battery here so that this thing keeps going. Do I have a plug up here, or do I need to run off my battery? Sounds like I'm running off my battery. Huh? Okay, fantastic. That works. So you have this dead listing. If you have a binary, an exe file, that's just a set of assembly language instructions. It's functionally no different from your original source code. It does all the things. All the things that it's capable of doing are in there. We're good. All right. I can plug in a laptop, right? Thought I had the battery for it, but you can't take into account that I had a bunch of stuff running in the background. So what a disassembler will let you do is bring that binary into an interface that lets you browse around all those instructions and start identifying all the functions. It may not be smart enough to know what to name them yet, but it's going to give them those Func001 type names, and it lets you start the process. And so a disassembler like Ghidra or IdaPro is going to give you a database interface, a visual interface that's backed by a database where you can start setting names to addresses in memory, setting types, adding comments to it that are your comments. It's your working space for it. When you use the dynamic analysis, then what you want to move to is doing is setting up experiments. Instead of just haphazard double-clicking on the Emcee and running it and see when it happens, you have a goal in mind, right? You reverse engineered this thing. You have a function that you don't know what it does. You know that it takes 3 arguments. You don't know the types of those arguments. You don't know anything about them. But whenever you get to that point in dynamic execution, what do we got here? Oh no. Don't worry about it. All right. Whenever you're looking at the execution and your dynamic analysis, you can set a breakpoint at that function that you had in your static analysis, stop execution there, and see what's in those data types.
Hey, Wes.
Hey.
We have a tradition at Seckc. If you say dynamic analysis 15 times, you have to take a shot.
Yes. Oh, Lord. Shit, I'll say it 15 more times. All right. More shots. Okay. So if you need a target for this sort of thing, if you're getting into this, VX Underground, it used to be, so years ago, it was hard to find malware samples. Malware samples are a competitive advantage for folks, right? And so if you're a antivirus company, if you're a threat intelligence company, and you're putting out papers, you're putting out detections and things like that, you having a malware sample that nobody else has is a tremendous competitive advantage. If you can publish a paper about a piece of malware and tell people how to detect it without sharing the sample of that malware so nobody else can do it quite as easily, you are in really good shape. And so what that means for you and I is that it can be hard to get a hold of samples sometimes. And when you're doing malware analysis, you need to be careful about how you share them too if you're working on this for a client, because sometimes malware will have artifacts of the targets in them. The Sony malware had tons of usernames and passwords in it that it used to spread around in Sony's network. And that would be the North Korean attack on Sony, not Sony's malware that they had on CDs. They actually wrote malware at one point. You make heavy use of virtualization. That's both an isolation thing, but also a workflow thing. Your snapshots are essentially your time travel for this. Now, modern debuggers and other dynamic analysis, where's my drink? Modern dynamic analysis tools have time travel features where they'll record state as they go and let you back up and go forwards with pen and other instrumentation tools. That's nice, but in the context of code that you really have no idea what it's doing versus your own code, sometimes like the state that it changes on the disk or in memory or in other processes is important, and it becomes a problem. So me, I just snapshot in the VM as my way of traveling back and forth through a program that's running in anger and WinDebug. Set up a matching development environment. This is something that a lot of reverse engineers don't do, but you should. Whatever you are reverse engineering, you need to be able to compile code for whatever platform that is, right? If you're reverse engineering Windows malware, that's the easiest thing. You just install Visual Studio and you compile Hello World in the first couple of chapters of KNR, and okay, I got the idea. I can generate executables like this guy can generate executables, right? This can get difficult if you're dealing with embedded systems and stuff, but try to set up a matching development environment, and you need to have some familiarity with the language that they're writing this in. Unfortunately, we never get a choice on the languages we deal with in reverse engineering. So we're always learning new languages, new platforms, new architectures, environments and things like that, operating system structures and such. Keep good notes and familiarize yourself. So one thing that I like to do or like to recommend to folks, and the ship may have sailed for you if this is your first time, but it may be worth you going back to KNRC or another C textbook for this. Pick up an introductory text on C or C++ or Go or Rust or what have you, and work through all the examples just like you've never coded in them before. And every time you generate an executable, hello world, if this, then that, take that executable, drag it into Ghidra and reverse engineering. You're going to be reverse engineering a program of one function or two functions or a handful of functions, but you're going to remove that difficulty of dealing with an environment where you're overwhelmed. Malware can have hundreds of functions in it. If it's linking in other libraries, it's going to have hundreds more, and you're going to be lost if you're just getting started on this. And so this is a nice approach. Document everything. When after a while it'll become natural to you because you will lose things and you'll hate that you lost them, or you'll hate that you didn't write something down, right? The biggest and the worst thing that you can do is to start taking notes or doing your static analysis in the VM that you're doing your dynamic analysis in, because if you do that and you restore that VM to a snapshot, you lost everything that you did. You lost what the malware did from that point forward, but you also lost your notes from that point forward that are in Ghidra, right? So separate VMs for those things. A lot of times with static analysis, it's fine to do that in the host OS because you don't have to have the actual live binary there. It's already processed, it loaded into the Ghidra database. When you're doing your research for things, stick to your primary sources as much as possible. Your language specifications, your processor architecture manuals, like your Intel assembly language instruction lists that are like, huge 2,000-page PDFs and such. Learn how to read that. There's a technique and a skill to reading the Intel manuals that's worth picking up, because otherwise you might just be at the mercy of some dude's blog post about that instruction. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not, right? There's architecturally, there's a huge thing in 64-bit Intel Windows, the way that their ABI, their application binary interface works, for how they define how functions call other functions, right? The way they reserve space on the stack and use registers as arguments and things like that from function to function. If you don't get that exactly right in Windows 64-bit assembly, your program will crash and you'll have no idea why, right? And so understanding things like shadow stack space and things like that can help. But there's no documentation for that other than Microsoft's ABI, right? So you just got to learn how to read that. And apply the scientific method. I kind of went into this earlier when I talked about sort of the using Ghidra as like looking at, this is everything that the program can possibly do, versus dynamic analysis. This is the one path of execution, and how to use that dynamic analysis to test theories that you have. That's what you're doing. You're setting up a hypothesis in Ghidra. You're like, I think that this function probably takes a string in this first variable. How do I figure out if that's the case? Well, I set a breakpoint there and I run it, right? You set up experiments to prove or disprove things that you're thinking about this malware. And so you're answering a question. You're treating the program as a graph or tree of functions that are dependent on each other. So if you think about a program, it's a tree, right? And Ghidra will display it to you as a tree. This function has references to calling this function and this function and this function. It has references to these areas in memory. And Ghidra will tell you these things, but it's up to you to figure out a strategy for rolling through them, because there might be hundreds of functions and thousands of variables and such. And so what I try to do is I try to look for functions that don't depend on anything else in the program other than things that I already know about, things that are function calls to the operating system that are documented, And I can use those to work backwards through that tree, those leaf nodes of that tree where this function doesn't depend on any other function. I can say, okay, what Windows API calls does it make? Now I can say, well, since it uses these variables and these Windows API calls, I know the types of these things, I know the meanings of them. I can start labeling those. And as you label those, Ghidra or IDAPRO will propagate that information back up through the tree of all the other functions and start setting types for you and save you a lot of time, right? And so you keep doing that and you keep doing that. You keep iterating through functions that don't depend on anything else that isn't documented. And you start making progress through a function, through a program. And so it's a puzzle. You start with known interfaces, data structures, and you expand from there. And everything you fill in makes your analysis easier. The worst thing you can do is load up Ghidra or IDAPRO, go browsing around aimlessly, and not making any markup because you're not making any progress. If you're not marking things up and making notes in your disassembler, you're not getting anywhere. You're going to wind up going around in circles and confusing yourself. And you have a feature in modern Ghidra and IDAPRO that will decompile code for you. And it's pretty good. It'll take assembly language and it'll give you C-looking output. It's usually nothing that would compile back into an executable, but it's something. I don't really use that much because I do know assembly and I can read it, and you really ought to go down that path. But as you mark up that assembly and set variable names and types and data structures and things like that to that data, the decompilation gets better. And so that's a good measurement of how well you understand a function is by how well Ghidra decompiles it based on the information you've given. Then you have the problem of establishing what is the author-written code, the malware author, the program author, what a human or an AI wrote for this program versus what is library code that's been brought and linked in. You don't want to everybody winds up at some point reverse engineering printf. Printf is a really huge function. Think about how you would implement printf if you're a C program. It's a lot of code, right? And so you wind up going through that, and you finally realize, oh, I'm reverse engineering printf. This sucks. Ghidra will try to keep you from doing that nowadays, but you still wind up going down rabbit holes. Another thing in malware is reverse engineering or finding OpenSSL in there. They'll have OpenSSL linked in statically with all the contents of that library brought into the program so that it can do crypto stuff, right? So malware will do that. And it can be hard to pick out what did the malware author write and what's library code. And so once you start identifying those boundaries, and you do it by looking for strings of that library in memory, and once you identify a piece of library code or a few pieces of library code, then you're off to the races. You can look up the documentation for that. You've got the source code for these libraries, or you at least have some documentation of how functions are called in them. And you can start labeling those, and that part of the program becomes no big deal. A good heuristic, at least, if somebody used Visual Studio's compiler to generate code, is that in the executable or loaded into memory, it's going to keep all that library code in one place. And so if at one memory location you got a function of OpenSSL, and several thousand bytes later and many more functions later, you have another function from OpenSSL, usually with Visual Studio, all the functions in between belong to that same library. They keep them contiguous, right? And so you can go ahead, and even if you don't know what those functions are, you can mark them all as library code so that you won't go down a huge rabbit hole trying to figure out what's going on with them. So you're not meant to be able to read this. This is Ange Albertini's walkthrough of a PE binary. If you look at an executable file versus a program in memory, those are two different beasts. Like a program is not loaded into memory by just allocating a buffer the size of the Emcee and loading it up in there. You can almost get away with that if you're writing your own loader, but it's not exactly that simple. And it's usually not that simple when it comes to a compiled binary. An executable file on Windows, on Linux, on anything defines a set of instructions for taking this pile of bytes on the disk and reconstructing a program in memory, right? So each program gets its own view of the memory space of your computer through virtual memory magic, which you'll get into when you get into this. Every program gets its own address space. Inside of that address space, the code gets loaded into one place, the data gets loaded into another, the library may be in some other section. You have resources like buttons and icons and things like that that are compiled in. And the PE file format or the ELF file format on Linux defines how that's built out into memory. And what the goal of Ghidra or IdaPro is to simulate in software that loading process, to take a binary and load it into a virtual memory, not in your computer's memory, but in a database that allows it to do all of its processing to figure out what's going on. And so each of those sections is going to load into separate areas of memory. There's going to be a starting place where execution starts here, right? And that's the initial state of the program. And Ghidra's going to go through this whole process, the same thing that Windows Loader does, to bring that in. And then instead of executing it, it's going to start doing its analysis to try to say, oh, these are the Windows API functions. Let's back propagate all the type information and names and things like that. If you're interested in a low-level look at this, getting into low-level programming or reverse engineering, things like that, for me, there's really no better way to get into this than books. I don't know of good training classes for it. Like mine are good, I think, right? But they're only going to take you so far. Even 45 hours of lecture hours in a semester is only going to get you so far, going to get you started on this. You're going to have to do some of your own independent learning with this, and most of the learning material that's out there is very surface level. But there is enough out there that you can get good, right? And so books are the easiest and cheapest way to get there. When you're talking about reverse engineering, No Starch Press has a couple of really good books. Practical Malware Analysis, it's the one with the alien autopsy on the cover, Sikorsky and Honig. That's a fantastic book. It's old now, I guess, but I will say that people were like, oh, well, it's only 32-bit code in there. There's a lot of malware out there that's still 32-bit, and it's still useful to work through the examples in that book. The examples in that book include malware samples that they have defanged to an extent. I still wouldn't just like run them on anything, but they have end of chapter exercises for those real world samples. And in the back of the book, a lot of people don't really realize this, but if you flip to the back of the book, it's like a college textbook where you get some of the answers back there. There's full workthroughs for each of those in there. And the malware samples are complex enough, you can go through and do more if you want to. That book, Practical Malware Analysis, was written before Ghidra was released publicly, so it uses IdaPro in large parts of it. When you get to the chapter on IdaPro, pull out the Ghidra book. It's another No Starch Press book. My friend Karen Nance wrote this, and it's a really, really good guide to Ghidra, and you can substitute that in for IdaPro. IdaPro costs monies, and Ghidra is free. So that's my recommendation on that, but IdaPro is perfectly capable. For computer architecture, basically how are things working at that low level of abstraction between the operating system and the chipset on the computer, the chipset, the processor, and all of its associated circuitry for memory management and everything. The best book for that is an expensive one, unfortunately. Computer Systems: A Programmer's Perspective. It's one of those college textbooks where it's like, I don't know, north of $100, right? There's an international edition of it that's really cheap, but don't buy it because they messed it up. Like they screwed up all the exercises in it. So you got to be careful with that one. The third edition covers 64-bit. That's the newest one, I believe. Second edition and back, if you go and find those are like college textbooks. Old editions are really cheap. The second edition and back do 32-bit, and it's fine. Again, No Starch Press, though, has an introduction to computer organization, under the hood look at hardware and x64 assembly. That one looks good. I haven't read it, but it looks good. For assembly language, I think the best book out there right now is probably Randall Hyde's Art of 64-Bit Assembly, Volume 1. That's the newest version of Art of Assembly. He's got editions of this book going all the way back. I'm not fond of the 32-bit edition of it, but past that, it's good too. There's a free book, PC Assembly Language by Carter. I think he used it as a textbook for a class that he was teaching. That's just a PDF floating around out there you can grab, and it's really good. It's also 32-bit, though. There's not a lot on 64-bit assembly language program because not a lot of people want to do that, right? People want to compile code. Dunteman's is x64 assembly language step by step. That guy's hilarious, really funny guy. The humor shows in the book, and the editions of that book go back to like 1987 or 88. The first version of that book was for 16-bit DOS, but he keeps updating it on and on. And you always want to have both the Intel set of manuals for the processors and the AMD ones. And you're like, well, they're compatible with each other. There's really never a situation where you're not going to find what you need in one of them or the other. They describe the instructions differently, right? And so sometimes for a particular instruction, I like AMD's description of it better. Others, I like Intel's better, right? In the Intel one, there's pseudocode for every instruction. There probably is an AMD as well. But Intel has pseudocode for every instruction, so you can really dig down and think about how you might write your own emulator for the processor. Though there are plugins for your disassemblers. Yeah, you just want to do that. Just chilling out, drinking, and reading Intel manuals. So C and C++ books that are not KNR and Strustrup, like everybody wants you to learn from KNR because that's the hardcore way to do it. KNR is getting old, right? There's been revisions in the C language since the second edition of that, many revisions. And so you might want to look at some of the more modern books, C Programming, Modern Approach, and C++ Primer. Linkers and Loaders, riveting text on how to write an operating system loader to bring a program from disk into memory, and different techniques for that. There's a lot to that. There's a book's worth of stuff and more on that. And then internals textbooks like Yosipovich's Windows Internals Parts 1 and 2. He left Microsoft Press, I believe, and he has self-published a lot of Windows internals books and systems programming books that are worth looking at. And then another weird edition type of thing, getting Petzold's Programming Windows 5th edition. Any newer edition than that, and it's not really what you want. The newer edition of that book covers like those weird Windows 8 Metro apps and things like that. You don't want that. The 5th edition of the book, published in '98, and you're like, okay, that's getting a little old, Wes. Hear me out. It's a huge book. It's 800 pages, some massive textbook. But it covers enough of the Windows API, and enough of it hasn't changed that book is still extremely valuable to have. What? Nothing changes in Windows. They just keep adding more and more and more shit on top of it. Yeah. And it's a constant learning. Your tools are evolving. New versions of Ghidra, monthly, it seems like. Your target is going to define what you need to learn, right? And so I don't get to decide what my next programming language to learn is. I have to deal with whatever I'm working with, whatever my target is. Another thing that can help is if you're looking at a piece of malware, so VX Underground's great for this. They have malware samples alongside papers, research papers on those malware. Papers produced by Trend Micro or Kaspersky or what have you. Mandiant and all that. You can have the malware on hand. You can have Trend Micro's analysis of it on hand, and you can read through it and then work through it yourself and see if you get the same results. And I will say that if you find something different from what's in other large companies' analyses for these malware, you might be right and they might be wrong. This happened all the time in my semester-long classes. I had students do this for their projects, and they would find things and find mistakes in high-profile companies' analyses. They found places where Kaspersky lies about how they get their samples, right? About what systems they suck that thing off of, right? And we're able to prove it based on the analysis of the malware that was available. You're always going to be learning new evasion techniques. If you're a red teamer and you've been trying to write code or compile code or modify binaries to get past endpoint detection, that's always going to be, that's a constant process for you on the red team. You're always going to be learning how to do new things on that front too when you're doing your analysis. Using AI for this, you can. Like, I'm not a huge fan of cloud-based AI. I like to keep it all local. Local LLMs are fantastic. I would suggest that as you're learning this stuff, instead of having an LLM do any of the work for you, and there is some capability there, use it for what we call rubber duck debugging. Who knows what I'm talking about when I'm talking about rubber duck debugging? You literally have a literal rubber duck on your desk, and this is when you're coding. You have a problem with your program. You don't understand what's going on with it. Your goal is to sit there and explain the problem to that rubber duck. And in the process of doing that, you're going to solve your problem. More often than not, you solve your problem explaining it to the rubber duck. I have people that I hire that sit there and let me explain things to them. And so, but you can do this with an LLM as well. You can explain your problems to an LLM. You can explain your understanding of something to an LLM to verify whether or not you're right. You're like, I think it's like this, and so forth, right? And so you can verify things. When you're coming up on assembly line, if you want to, you can do this. You can copy and paste a whole function, and I've played around with this. Copy and paste a whole function of assembly language into an LLM. I do this locally on LM Studio. It does a pretty good job of analyzing the code. It's not hard to throw it off. And the reason for this is like I said, there's not a lot of people who can do this. There's not a lot out there on it. And so there's not a lot of information in the training data that they suck in for these LLMs. There's not enough to make them really good reverse engineers. Local models that I've used for this fairly successfully, Quinn 3 Coder, 30 billion parameter, GPT OSS 20 billion parameters. Those are things you can run on a home rig pretty feasibly, and so you can put some AI into it. If you are interested in getting into this sort of stuff, I make myself available, right? Like I do this for any talk, workshop, class I give. What I really want to hear is 2-3 years from now, come back to me and tell me you got a job doing this stuff because you got started from a talk or a workshop that I taught. I get this every once in a while. I love it, right? So even if you lie to me, you can do that. Just put it in your calendar for a while later to tell me that you did this. But also, you can email me. I have my website and the list of books that I recommend for a bookshelf on this that I went through. That's on there with some more. I'm on Twitter. I'm on y'all's Discord. I'm on Seckc Discord because y'all are my adoptive hacker group. So I'm on there, and I'm happy to answer questions or just talk to you about stuff. All right, appreciate that. And so with that, I think that's probably a good point for me to knock off on this. But I'll be around. I plan on hanging out here through the event. And so I'm happy to talk with any or all of y'all about it. And so I just appreciate y'all having me here, and thank you. Thank you. I love y'all too.
there it is. There it is. Okay, how many people are first-time attendees here tonight? Very cool. Very cool. Come on. There we go. There we go. Thank you all for coming out. Hope you found this to be a welcoming and fun place. Come join us on the internet and come and speak to us next year. If you're new, I want you guys to just kind of think about this and put it into perspective. I think for me personally, that last meeting that we had before the pandemic and we all went home stands as kind of a special marker, especially because I ended up taking portraits of a ton of the people that were there with the flash and everything like that. And it was funny looking at all the directors that were standing up here tonight. And almost everybody that is a director in senior leadership driving the direction of this organization was a person that was so new when they were at Seckc at that meeting right before the pandemic that, hell, I didn't know who the hell Maddie was, right, at all. And now Maddie's everywhere, like Miss Rabbit from Peppa Pig. So all to say, if you like the vibe that you have, do what you can to get involved. As much or as little as you can, we will have all of you all year round. So thank you again for coming out. Now, Andrew is doing some incredible work professionally and has been giving some fascinating talks on breaking through some of the problems of the internet. You know, I talked earlier about where things are heading, right, in 2026. You think about how rapidly people can deploy infrastructure in places that are behind CDNs and hard to see and stuff like that. I saw the other day that now you can just that Google is just letting you not only turn up agents through a GUI to write code and execute code, now you can use that same kind of a GUI to just throw infrastructure out there. And if anybody's ever to deal with getting any kind of malicious anything taken down from the Google Cloud or from behind Cloudflare or any of the big service providers that we all so desperately rely on, you realize that this is all really hard and getting harder, and hopefully we can find some ways to work through it. And Andrew's been working through some really kick-ass ways at scale of giving us some valuable information. So please welcome Andrew to his first in-person meeting, even though he is from Kansas City, hometown kid. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful time.
Thank you. Hey everybody, how we doing out there? Good. All right, so my talk here, Evidence in Motion. The longer name of it couldn't fit on the slide, so we're gonna pop on in here. So what we're gonna be talking about here is essentially what is it that the bad guys or threat actors are doing these days, and how can we stop them? Because that's what it's all about, right? Is making threat actors have a bad time. Correct? Yeah. All right, cool. So the important part of this talk is that we're going to be talking about web-delivered malware. And this is distinctly different than what we have traditionally talked about when it comes to malware, infections, initial access vectors, and how threat actors have been getting footholds on networks for the past 20, 25 years, 30 years, right? Since the dawn of the internet. So, big question here, who am I? Show of hands here, who thinks I look like Dog the Bounty Hunter? And if you think I look like the Tiger King, let me hear you make some noise. Okay, cool, cool. Personally, I think I'm like Waluigi if he had a great budget, right? Okay. Cool, cool. But more importantly, I've been a bad kid on the internet since I was 12 years old. That's how I got interested in this, okay? Doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing, poking at things, being generally curious. And that's what I tell people is don't stop being curious, and that's what drives me. Here's the technical stuff. I've been doing this for about 16 years in information security or cybersecurity or being a hacker. Currently, I work for Census. Anybody know who Census is? All right, for those of you who don't know who Census is, and I'm not at all hawking anything that my company sells, but we scan the internet, the entire IPv4 range, every 4 minutes. all 65,000 some odd ports, and we put it in a database that's all searchable. And so I spend all day looking at everything that's on the internet. And that includes all the response bodies, everything that goes along with that. So I hunt threat actors at scale, and that's the important part. But more importantly is my pedigree, which is that I've been doing all of the stuff that probably a lot of you guys have been doing in your career. So I know where you're coming from as a defender or as a red teamer. I was a firewall jockey who was on call for 4 years. I was a red teamer who would do classic engagements where I would attack Windows domains, try to get domain administrator to write terrible reports that everybody would ignore. And then I also spent some time doing some hardware penetration testing. I was at Garmin for 12 years, and so I used to try to attack all of their products before they go to market. And my favorite thing about that is I was always on the projects that had to do with life or limb. Autopilot systems for aviation, things that could make a boat run into rocks, things of that nature. Iridium satellites, I was talking to somebody out there about that earlier. Really cool stuff. Cool, and also did incident response. And I'll tell you what, I've been exposed to some pretty terrible breaches in my time doing incident response, writing reports, and I said, you know what? I hate that, so I'm gonna figure out how to stop that. So what we're gonna be talking about today is everything sucks right now. It's harder than ever. And the reason why is because the way that we used to think about traditional threats no longer works. In the intro, he was talking about that. Oh, all right, here we go. What is this magical liquor?
So we have a little tradition here at Seckc. If it's your first time giving a talk, you take a shot. Cheers.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Okay, so I was saying that everything sucks, right? We all agree everything sucks on the internet right now? Okay, cool. And the reason why it sucks more than ever is because threat actors can spin up infrastructure faster than you could ever believe, and there are ways to anonymize it. You have proxies, you have DNS, fast flux, things of that nature. But what gets worse is that now we have companies that are claiming to be doing good things, and in many cases are, but are making things difficult for defenders, like Cloudflare. Anybody know about Cloudflare? Okay. And so what's happening here is that the threats are moving faster than ever. There are a lot of redirect chains, and then these domains are burning down in a matter of hours sometimes instead of days, weeks, months. You know, we used to be able to say, hey, bad-domain.xyz is bad, block it on your firewall, and you'd be able to wait to a change window to be able to put that in, and you'd be good to go, and that's no longer the case. So static indicators, they're pretty much dead. And so I'm going to talk about how you can hunt at scale in order to find the infrastructure that threat actors are using before they even have time to build their first payload and deploy it as an initial access vector. Does that sound pretty good? Okay, cool. All right, so I've talked a little bit about how the way that we've traditionally thought about indicators has changed, and so I want to talk about the why. Traditionally, what we would see is we would see a builder, like commercial rats, commodity rats, like Agent Tesla, Async Rat, Rimcos, all these things that you can buy off the shelf that claim to be for educational purposes or are available for free on GitHub. And I'm sure they're all used for educational purposes, right? And what people will do is they will take those and they will build that payload after they stand up their C2 instance, and then they will send it out via email or any other kind of social lure, and they hope that someone engages with that and that they get the opportunity to get hands on keyboard on the system with whatever it is that is their motive, whether it's defacement, hacktivism, financial gain, or nation-enabled, nation-state espionage, right? Those are the big ones. But what happens in the past is that you have vendors like Mandiant or these threat intel platforms like AlienVolt or even VirusTotal, things of the nature. The only reason why you get those indicators is because something bad has happened already. Okay, that means that somebody found that and they said, oh, this is terrible, and it was infected on my network or it was caught by something and it's too late already. And so what's happening is that we're no longer going to be able to do that. Instead, we're having JavaScript loaders that are injected on websites. I'm going to talk a lot about that. And then we're going to have a short time to live for the C2s, and then we're going to constantly see them use different technologies, new technologies, things that we're all personally excited about, as technologies used against us. Anytime that anything exciting comes out on the internet, the first thing I think is yes, and then I immediately think, fuck. Okay? Because it's going to be used against us right away. Okay, so I am not one to bury the lead, okay? So I'm going to tell you exactly right here at the very beginning, the thing that you need to take away from this, okay? JavaScript is the anchor, okay? You'll see why. We're going to hunt on JavaScript. All right, so the reason why we say we're going to hunt on JavaScript is because this is what we consider a choke point. All those other things that we were talking about that are ephemeral, okay, are going to be blown away in the wind in a matter of minutes, hours, whatever. But what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to figure out what these structures of these code blocks are, and we're essentially going to be able to write detections, or we're going to be able to write hunting queries and able to go out and proactively find all that stuff. And I'm calling that a choke point. So we're going to go ahead and find this shared lineage across these websites, and that's how we're going to be able to hone in on that. But we need to talk about a little bit more about this traditional threats. And I think I covered a lot of this already because I'm really excited and passionate about this topic, so I'm trying not to like info dump on all of you here. But basically, we talked about that this kind of threat model is dead here. You know, right on, right on. Instead, what we're seeing is we're seeing these web-based threats where you're going to have a website compromised. Anybody hear about React? Anybody who was in the room as they should have been earlier? Okay, all right. So React sucks, and when I saw that, I was like, great, as if threat actors need another way to compromise the website. We're talking about credential stuffing attacks anytime that anybody uses info stealers, anytime that anybody uses a WordPress plugin or anything that is vulnerable on a website, they're able to compromise it and they get a hold of it. What they do with that then is they inject JavaScript. Back in the before 4 times, they were just doing PHP gates and things like that, but now they're using JavaScript. So they inject that JavaScript, and then when a victim or a target, in many cases, visits that website that they would normally visit, then what happens is that their browser at runtime, which is when it displays the page, and it takes the source of the page, takes all of the JavaScript libraries that are on the page and all the instructions and renders the DOM, or okay, what's happening then is the browser then carries out all of those instructions, and then it goes into the attack chain where it's essentially going to end up delivering a payload. We'll talk more about that. There are a lot of steps there, and I'll tell you already, that's a very difficult thing to stop. And bad news is that it gets worse. So I've been tracking a lot of threat actors for many years, and I like to pride myself by saying that I like to track what are considered the apex predators of the e-crime threat landscape. These are going to be the initial access vendors. These are folks that deliver payloads and infect people, and then they fingerprint the environment to figure out if it's a desirable target, and if so, then they sell that access to one of these ransomware groups. Okay, we're all familiar with ransomware. We know what happens there. There are also first-party groups that do these injects as well, that also handle the ransomware themselves. It's a complicated ecosystem where they might even be paying people just to do the injects. Then other people get that access. They filter it off and they say, hey, do I just want to deploy an information stealer or do I want to do the ransomware? So on and so forth. So this is a little snippet. Gosh, you cannot read this at all, so I apologize. Basically, what's happening here is that there's a series of fingerprinting that is going on, and if the target is desirable, what's happening is that then it is going to go ahead and deploy a follow-on payload, such as Cobalt Strike in many instances, and that is going to be put onto a team server, and that team server is then handled to facilitate the locking of the domain. If it is not considered desirable, then they still make money off of it because they will go ahead and deploy information stealers. Those are going to be things that are going to scrape all of your cookies. You can simply put those cookies back into like the Firefox, and then you just refresh the page and you're logged in. Or they're going to do things with that, like package those up and resell them, which can put you at risk of further being compromised later on, which is terrible and terrifying to think about. So what does that look like? This is what I would traditionally call a fake update. Has anybody seen any of this in any of the reports? No? Okay, if you haven't, If your IT department has been telling you this whole time that you need to update at every given chance, then probably you've been trained like a dog that when you see that an update comes that you need to go ahead and click on it right away. And they are exploiting that. And what they're doing is they're saying that your browser's out of date, and if you want to visit the site that you intended to visit, then you need to update your browser. And what happens is they're giving you a JavaScript payload that then uses WScript on the system to go ahead and ascertain things about your environment, whether you are a domain joined box or whether you have certain things that they might desire. So what we can do there is that we can go ahead and figure out what this JavaScript looks like, and we can go ahead and write queries to find that, and that gives us the domains, IPs, so on and so forth, so we can block them before they're even used. So let's look at what this traditionally would look like here. So this is going to be, you cannot read that either, I'm so sorry. The orange part says you are using an older version of Chrome, and then there's update assets /img/chrome.jpg, and then there's a download here, and there are the different things that we can key off of, okay? So if we're looking at the HTML body on this site, we can very readily say, that's not supposed to be there. And that gives us that indicator, and that's the very basic version of what this choke point looks like. It's going to get better, I promise. So up until this point, we talked about injecting a website with JavaScript. It gets worse. Has anyone here heard about ether hiding? Okay, cool. You guys are going to be stoked. Okay, so there's this terrible thing that happened where everybody decided that the internet wasn't good enough, and we decided to make the sequel to the internet, and then another one, and we're calling it Web 3. And so what we have is, well, I'm going to put a disclaimer here. Is anybody here a cryptocurrency enthusiast or know anything about cryptocurrency? Okay, cool. I apologize ahead of time because I am not an expert the way that you are, but I think I'm going to be able to convey the way this works. So we need to talk about this a little bit here. So cryptocurrency and Web3 relies on a technology called the blockchain. I've highlighted all the important words you need to know because I know you're not going to read that. Basically, cryptocurrency is a distributed ledger that basically that it's completely transparent and you can't alter what's on the blockchain without it being completely transparent. You can see the changes, you can see everything that goes on with it, and it provides transparency. That's great. The thing that's terrible about it is enduring, it's durable, it's hard to take down, it provides the ability for folks to hide themselves, all the things that we would generally consider to be good when it comes to the world of privacy, but it's terrible when it comes to the ability to carry out attacks on children's hospitals. So another couple of key points you need to know is that we're going to talk a little bit about wallets. Wallets are what are generally going to hold cryptocurrency. You guys are going to kill me for this, but for all intents and purposes, it's basically what we would call an account, okay? Because the transactions that are going to be carried out by the wallet are going to be traced back to a particular wallet. Okay, transactions are changes on the blockchain, and in order to make the transaction on the blockchain, you have to pay what's known as a gas fee. This is all really important. I know this is incredibly dry, but once you understand all of this, then you're going to go, oh, this sucks really bad once I tell you what happens here. So you can update the contents of what are called a smart contract. A smart contract is an object that's stored on the blockchain that is stored in binary format. And there are a lot of legitimate uses for it. You could have an application in there, you could have data you can post to it, where you can record information about who you're doing business with. There's lots of good reasons to use it, but you can go ahead and update it by doing what's called a transaction. Okay, so how does this work? What we're seeing is that threat actors are using a library to interact with the Binance blockchain, known as the Ethers library. There are two specific versions that are most prevalent that people are using. It is the Ethers and the Ethers min or minimized version of this. So what we'll see is that there will be a call to import this Ethers JavaScript library into the website, and then it'll make a call to an RPC node, which I'll explain what that is, that then interacts with the smart contract. So Ethers library, right here on GitHub. RPC node the easiest way to think about this is that if you want to interact with a blockchain, you have to interact through an RPC node. Think about it like an API call. In many cases, it's an endpoint that you can deal with. And there are a published list of these RPC nodes that are for this particular blockchain that we're talking about. It's important to note that there are multiple blockchains and they have different IDs. And so we have the BSC mainnet and also the BSC testnet here. And to make matters worse, you can publish your own RPC endpoint with any domain that you want at any time, which makes detecting things terribly difficult. Because if you were just thinking to yourself, I can just look for those endpoints and block any traffic to them, no, you can't. Again, it's terrible, right? Okay, so then we interact with the smart contract. I talked a bit about what this is. Okay, so I'm using the Binance Blockchain Explorer here, and what we see is we're looking at a specific contract which has an address up in the upper left-hand corner, and we are looking at all of the transactions. So in the from column, what I have is the wallet, or as I very much like a caveman Neanderthal called it, an account. Here is the one that's doing the transaction. That is the threat actor that is changing or making updates to that smart contract. And what are they changing? They are changing what it is pointing to, their malware payload that they are using that JavaScript to point to. So that could be another server. This is all going to make sense in a second. You just have to bear with me. I'm going to show you a really cool example here. Okay. That's what I say every time I go to work, man. Okay, cool. And so just showing you here that the contract is stored in binary, and this is actually hex for anybody who wants to say anything here. So, okay, so we have all of that there. And why would they do all of this? There still has to be a way to get people to interact with things. Has anybody here heard of ClickFix? Okay, God bless you if you haven't, because everybody talks about it all the time. What it is that they say to somebody who visits a website, do you want to hit yourself in the face with a hammer? And everybody says yes, okay? All right. What it is that we have all sorts of lures where we're trying to get people to do things because, I mean, it was bad enough when we had exploits, right? But now we figure out that the users are the stupidest link in the chain. We can just say, hey, why don't you just install this malware? And they said, you know what, I fucking hate my company. And they'll do it, okay? And so one of the most common lures that we have here is what are called a fake CAPTCHA, along with a fake ClickFix, blah, blah, blah. And we've all seen this before because we've all been conditioned, once again, that if we want to see the shit that we went out to go see, we're going to click that goddamn box, aren't we? Can I get a hell yeah? Hell yeah! All right, perfect. Okay, so, and then it tells you, and you won't believe this if you've never seen this shit before. It says, it gives you instructions based upon how they fingerprinted your system. Hey, we went ahead and copied this shit to your clipboard. Go ahead and open up the Windows run command and paste it in there, hit enter. You wouldn't do that, right? Okay. And hell yeah. So anyway, very good. So because everybody's doing all of this all the time, and in fact, I've been tracking, like I just looked earlier today, there's probably like 15,000 sites that have this injected on it right now where you just go to it and it's a CAPTCHA, and everybody's like, oh yeah, of course, I'm going to click on that. And so I said, well, what do all these things have in common? And this is back to the point of my talk. This is a choke point, okay? We are looking for this reused icon here, which is hosted on Wikimedia. And you say to yourself, why would any page that's actually doing a CAPTCHA have the source code pointing to a Wikimedia for a reCAPTCHA right on there? That's not how websites work. So we're honing in on that. So the other day, I was hunting for that. You can't see that at all. God damn it. What it is that's the icon, or that's the link that I have highlighted there that says Wikimedia, okay? I found this in the source on a website. And I went to the website, and can you believe it? It did this. And so I said, what the hell is this website doing? And I opened it up, and there was a big blob. You're not supposed to be able to read that, by the way. The big blob of JavaScript text in there, and I said, oh, yeah, that's totally normal and fine. And I looked at it, and I blew it up, and I used a base 64 decoder in order to look at it. And this piece that I've highlighted right there is the format of a smart contract address, and that was my first clue. okay? And then I said, I'm going to go to this I'm putting you guys on game right now, so pay attention. I went to this wonderful website called WebCrack, okay? Does anybody know about WebCrack? Okay, WebCrack fucking rules. Buy that guy a beer. I messaged him on Signal, and he said, I don't know who you are. And anyway, I put that in there, and it beautifies all of this. It makes it look really nice so you can see what's going on. And then that endpoint right here that I was talking about, the RPC endpoint, you can see that that's where it's calling back to. And then you can also see that address right down there. Okay, so what is in that contract? Well, it fetches it, and believe it or not, it's more JavaScript. And once I take a look at that, then there's some things that are really interesting here. They are filtering out, I'm putting the dot here because you can't read this, or maybe you can. They are filtering out headless browsers who are scraping the internet, things like Phantom.js, Puppeteer, Playwright. And then, more importantly, they are looking to see if you are a Windows system or a Mac system. Why would they be doing that? Because malware deployed to different systems requires different things, right? But, more importantly here, there's a console log that says stop watching us with a smiley face. Who do you think that was directed towards? Yes, it was. And this is not the first time that a threat actor has called me out. This is my previous research here when TA569, the people at Evil Corp, named one of their shadowed subdomains after my Twitter handle. So there's also something else that's going on here. There's a secret third thing that's been going on, and that is that they are also doing the same thing that all of these ad companies are doing. So the tracking pixels, the various different cookies, the different localized storage that tracking companies, Google, Yandex, everybody uses to track us across websites. They're also doing that as well, but in a more nightmarish hellscape of a way. They are using yet another smart contract to fingerprint your browser and then to write a unique UUID to that and then say, hey, we've seen you before. So when someone like me, someone like you, someone who gets infected and their network is getting locked and the incident responder comes in and they try to walk that chain again to figure out what the hell happened, they won't be able to figure it out. So they're posting that UUID and then they say, we won't serve you malware ever again. Goodbye. Oh, absolutely, brother. And I'm going to show you that here in just a minute. No, you use the Ether library, the Ethers library. And so you can go out and you can do the Ethers library. There's also a Go wrapper for that already. And you can go and you can register a free API key. And the people, honestly, on Bscan are insanely nice. I actually wrote him an email earlier today that said, Lord help me, I've been finding so much malware on the smart blockchain. Can you give me any other tools? I'm hoping to get a positive response. If anybody's out there that knows anybody, please. So you can go out there, and I've written a bunch of tools, and I'm happy to share them with anybody. It's not special sauce. There's no gatekeeping for what I'm doing here. I'm not cool. Well, I'm pretty cool, but I'm not special. So if there's anything I can do to help you to be able to analyze this stuff, I'm happy to share this. I'll throw it on a gist and put it out there. So anyway, so this contract, it's a gate, and that's a really cool icon I made earlier today. Okay, and so the computer. Yeah, the computer did it. I said, computer, I got an idea, and they said, cool. Okay, so we're going to look specifically at the contract that was pointing towards Mac, because everybody talks about Windows and domains and everything like that. Like, who the hell would want to get a Mac laptop? And I say to you, how many startups, companies, and how many companies that are large that think that they're going to avoid malware by switching all of their infrastructure to non-Microsoft stuff? Anybody work at a place that has done that? Gentlemen there, okay. I'm seeing this more and more, okay. There's no more domain there's no more domain controllers, things like that, traditional paths. But the threat actors are getting smart on that too. They say, hey, if you are a Silicon Valley startup and you've got a bunch of seed money and you've only deployed non-managed Mac laptops, we're going to be able to go ahead and lock you up and get a lot of money out of you. And it's happened. So this is the particular contract for this. And that looks like an eye chart, so I'm going to move on. But basically what that's doing is that is loading the entire lure for this thing. We're back here. We went full circle, right? That's everything that's under the hood. That's a lot of fucking work to not really do anything, right? Just for the lure. So what did we miss here? What we missed is what actually gets copied to the clipboard. It's a simple bash command, and this is a, we say, okay, well, Andrew, what is the point of this talk? We got this here, we can block this, right? Wrong, because it gets even worse. This is an OSA script or an Apple script. You're not supposed to read this, I can't read this. So what we have here is actually a set of functions that are fine, you still can't read that probably, that are asking the user to engage AppleScript in order to prompt using the system prompt on the Mac that you need to sync your password. And what that's doing is it's taking your password on a cron job and sending it to the threat actor to make sure they say synchronized. There's also some other things here that are important to note. Like for example, set domain, send specs, auth, and sync. And because they're idiots and they put it in plain text and I was able to capture this, I did a little trick, and this is to your point here, how can we fuck with them, right? And the important part about this is that particular piece, those C2s are not static either. What they're actually doing is they're calling out to Steam, and they're getting the alias for Steam profile that you can change all the time, and that is the domain. And if that doesn't work, then they also have it for Telegram, so they have two fallbacks that they're constantly rotating. And the script itself, I'm going to back up real quick. You can't see this very well, but it is checking that all the time. So they can change that as much as you want. So all of these indicators, these domains, these IPs and shit that we thought that we were protecting ourselves with, it doesn't work anymore, right? What we need to do is we need to focus on that JavaScript. And so this is how I fucked with them. I actually wrote a bot, and this bot is going ahead and checking in with them. And I'm sending a fake hardware ID and various things, and then I'm doing a wait loop where I'm listening, because this is not them coming in and opening up. Instead, it's me going out and doing a GET request where they're queuing up instructions to run on my machine. Okay, and I said, well, what kind of things would they be running on my machine? Well, they gave me a big old clue when they gave me all the function names and what it was going to be structured as and what it needs to be sent back as. So I went ahead and wrote probably a dozen pages of fake things that could be sent back to them. So this is a fake process tree, this is a fake architecture, this is a fake who am I, this is a fake what's in my keyring, everything like that to keep them engaged. Why? Because I want them to give me the one piece of information that is hard as fuck for them to change, which is where their ultimate follow-on payload is, where they're going to be deploying the ransomware from. So I'm sitting there right now, I'm harvesting the hell out of that, and I am taking it and I'm getting it all taken down. I have a script for that. It's automatically submitting abuse reports to everybody, and as it's running in the background at home right now, and I'm taking all that down. So there's an example of that. There's me waiting for responses from them. So basically, my goal here is to take over the world. It's actually to map the entire ecosystem. And I have names for all these pathetic losers who are doing all this bullshit. I don't even want to tell you because that would make them cool, right? I have all these clusters. I know what they're doing. I know what their point is, who they're selling the shit to. It doesn't matter because the defense is the thing that matters. We got to stop glorifying threat actors. We need to start stepping on their fucking necks. Questions?
So earlier you showed the website that had the pop-up. What kind of website was that? Was it a blog?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what we're seeing is actually they will go, okay, there's a couple of different behaviors that I've observed over several years. We'll see them go on themes where they'll be like, oh, we're going to do a whole bunch of real estate websites real quick. And so I have, anybody who is an Intel buff will appreciate the way I'm going to couch this. With a moderate level of confidence, I assess that they say there are certain industries that are going to spend on marketing. So that marketing is going to be emails trying to drive people to websites that they're going to funnel all that traffic to them. So what we'll see is there'll be like themes about like particular things like real estate or like restaurants, so on and so forth, and they move through different industries. What we'll also see, and this complicates things, and again, why you need to hunt on the technique and on the JavaScript blocks in order to block proactively, that they will go after domains that have been existing for quite a while. So you can't just go say, oh, I'm going to block XYZ, TLDs, blah, 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 or things that have only been up for like a month or things like that. These are mom and pop websites where nobody's maintaining them for, you know, like years they've been up. So like the reputation data from various other vendors I won't mention doesn't help you at all. Questions? So the Steam account wasn't acting as a control server. The Steam account was acting as, so anybody here use Steam? Oh, video games, yeah. Okay, how many times have you guys changed your Steam name? A lot. 10 times, okay. Well, the 10 times that he's changed his Steam name, what if he changed his Steam name to bob.com or bad.com? It's the alias, and so that particular core request is acting as yet another way to change and to rotate that infrastructure. Questions? Cool. There are a lot of companies out there that give free data for that. I'm going to say somebody that's not my company. Public www is a great way to do that. Also, I think they're ran by criminals, but whatever. Anybody else? Oh, hell yeah. This is actually a technique that I wanted to talk about, another technique, so you're like, you're getting me a chance to talk about all this stuff. I did this thing called malware archaeology, where I will write down things and I'll analyze a malware that I've seen before, and I say, oh, that's a bunch of stuff, I don't know what that is, and then I like leave this terrible Confluence page with a bunch of mysteries. And then a year later, all of a sudden all that shit starts to make sense. And I do the same thing with capturing the complete DOMs and source of things that I don't understand, and then I catalog it, I'll throw it into an ECS cluster, various different things. Yes? When's my browser plugger coming out? Oh, he left, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I write a lot of tools, and if anybody wants something that helps to do this, hit me up, and we'll collaborate on that. We could honestly, this is a thought. The thought I'm having right now, honestly, is we probably could crowdsource some type of a browser plugin that if we all ran it and we scraped sites, we could put it into a bucket we could all access. Any other questions? We can do that HoboCon, right? Okay, cool. All right, cool. Well, I just want to say thanks a lot for having me. I know that this is probably pretty dry and pretty technical, but I assume that you guys are all technical here, right? So the only thing is that I'm just sorry that I haven't been involved with Seckc before, having lived here for so long, and I'm going to be coming a lot, so thanks a lot.
Awesome. I don't think I'm supposed to be here. Usually Maddie has some things that she has to say. I just happen to be here, and the microphone beckons me. Run, John, run here, Chicago. Careful, everybody. I've got a microphone in my hand. All right. Got things to talk about. Let's talk about Sam Altman. Oh, shit.
Please don't talk about him. Not in this area. At least censor a little bit. Thank you all for coming out. I know it's kind of a warm, thank goodness, December night. We don't usually do December Seckc meetings. I really appreciate you guys coming out. Tip your bartenders, close your non-existent cash tabs, and join us on January, I'm going to be making this up if I say it, the 11th, the second Tuesday of the month. Oh, wait, you guys are not ready for this. Lintile is coming out. The guy that does the actual Hacker Jeopardy at DEF CON, he's going to be doing it here on this stage if you are ready for that. And I expect like 3 times the amount of people, so you better come out early. And I'm also making everything I'm saying up, except Lintile coming out. He did confirm. So, January 13th. I was so close. Thank you all. Have a great night. Happy New Year. Merry Chrysler. And follow us on these social medias. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Bye-bye.